Okay, let's do a basic introduction to shell scripting in Bash. Now, a Bash shell script is basically just a list of Bash commands that are executed all at one time when we execute the script. Now, when I say basically that's what it is, don't get me wrong, Bash shell scripting can be extremely powerful. There's a lot of capabilities inside Bash that we don't always take advantage of when we're just interacting with the operating system. So we can take advantage of those when we're scripting, and it becomes a super powerful, super flexible automation engine. Now, we're not going to go too deep into it, but I do want to give you a brief introduction to it. But rather than typing up a script for you, I actually have one that I've already created. So I'm going to do an ls-l, and here you're going to see our count.sh. Now, this is a really simplistic script, but I wanted to use it to illustrate a couple of things when it comes to shell scripting. So first off, let's take a look at what we've got. So nano count.sh. Now the first line here is this hash and then the exclamation point or bang. Now every place else where you see a hash, basically it means this is a comment. And so I put in a lot of comments here so that as you hopefully pause the video and walk through, you'll be able to read all of the comments and hopefully it'll help it makes sense. But the first one is actually not a comment. The first one identifies a command interpreter. So basically it says use bash to interpret this script. Okay, let's walk through it. So remember the goal is I'm going to count from 1 to whatever number the user said. So I start by setting the initial value. This is a variable num equals 1. And then I display some information. Then welcome to the counting script. Would you like me to count for you? And then I put a Y and a capital N, indicating that the default is going to be no. So they're going to have to enter a Y if they want to actually count. And then I read that variable. And so they respond with Y and N or whatever. Actually, it doesn't matter because here it says if count is Y, then do this. Now, a couple of things I want to point out to you about this. Notice I have a space between my square brackets and my condition. That's important. If you don't do that, your if function probably won't work correctly. So make sure it's square bracket space and then whatever you want to evaluate and then another space before the square bracket. So this evaluates the condition. And if that condition is met, then we do this. And so I actually indented the rest of it just to make it a little bit easier to recognize that this is happening under this. Notice I didn't put the documentation, but that's okay. So if they hit yes, then we're going to do the rest of this. But if they hit anything else, it's going to drop all the way down here to the FI, which is finish. And that finishes the if statement. So it just exits the script. Now I could do an else or an else if or something like that, but I was wanting to keep this one pretty simple. So if they say yes, then we're going to ask the question again, what number do you want me to count to? And we're going to read the goal. This echo just creates a blank line in the output. And then we have our while statement. Now, again, notice I've got the spaces between my conditions and these square brackets. So while the number is less than or equal to the goal, do this. And again, I ended it a little bit more to make it stand out. So we're going to display the number. And then this right here, num plus plus basically means incremented by 1. Now you'll notice this is not a dollar sign. Up here, when I referenced it, I used a dollar sign to reference the variable. Remember, anytime we're referencing a variable, we use a dollar sign. But here I'm not referencing it. I'm incrementing or I'm setting the variable, so I don't use that. And so this is going to continue. It's going to keep repeating these two lines over and over and over again until this condition is met. And when num, what we started out as 1 and are incrementing now, gets to the goal, then we will be done. It'll echo a blank space and then drop out of the script. All right, so a couple of things I wanted you to see in here. Number one, I wanted you to see the command interpreter. I'm going to have more than a couple, but I want you to see the command interpreter. I want you to see the documentation. I want you to see how we're getting input from the user, how we are running an if function, and then evaluating that, and a loop using a while do and how we are evaluating that. So go ahead and pause the video, type up your own copy of it if you want. Pause the video when you need to look at it, see if you can interpret what all it's doing, and then let's actually execute it. So I'm going to Control X, and if I do my LSL, you're going to see that I have this. Now, I actually can't run it at this point. So if I do count.sh, it says I don't know what that means. If I do // count.sh, yeah, we can't. Now, key thing here, notice the difference in the message. This one said, I don't understand that command. This says, oh, you don't have the permission to do that. Well, that's because if you look up here, you'll see we have read and write, but not execute permissions. So I'm going to add execute permissions to count, if I can spell it correctly, .sh. And now if I do an LSL, I have my execute permissions. And also notice that my file name has changed green. That's because this is now an executable file. So I'm going to do // count.sh. And that // tells Bash to look in this location for that file. And so it comes up, welcome to the counting script. Would you like me to count for you? Now, if I hit anything except Y, it's going to exit out. Let me execute it again. This time I'm going to say yes, and it's going to prompt me again. What would you like me to count to? And let's have it count to 12. So it's going to start at 1 and count to 12. You'll see that here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then it's going to execute us out, or exit us out. Okay. Really, really simplistic script. Honestly, probably not practical, but I wanted to use it to illustrate those things. Illustrate setting the command interpreter, doing documentation, assigning variables, getting user input, running an if logical function, and then a while do loop. So hopefully that gives you enough that you can see some of the capabilities of Bash and maybe get you started on putting together your own scripts for automation.